Welcome into another exciting episode of Real Biz. I'm your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today is the founder of Sandy Grey Consulting, Sandy Grewal. Sandy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am absolutely thrilled to have you here and honored. I know that you have an inspiring story to share, and I know that you're working on a lot of big things with a lot of big names in the entertainment world and otherwise. But before we get into all of that, would love to just give you the floor here for a little bit off the top and have you give us a little bit of your backstory.
Of course. So I was born in Montreal, Canada. I know they always say they want the short version, so I'll try to keep it as short as possible.
You take your time.
Came to LA at 12 years old. You know, the family had moved at that time for business opportunities. As they say, LA is always the place to come when you're too big for your hometown. So everyone was in that entertainment world and that, you know, the celebrity world, which we all grew up in. I, got an MBA, then I got another master's. I went to USC to pursue my double master's in communications. And I had met someone that portrayed themselves as, a friend, got to know everything about me. This was way before a Tinder swindler or anything we ever knew about that. And just continued to use me over a decade. And I think the biggest life lesson I learned was to alchemize everything that's happened to you and really step into that positivity in life. We're all here for a reason. We're not just here to live and die. And I use now my story to inspire others and to really help, especially minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, to show them what you're capable of. You don't need branding for $18,000 a month and PR for $10,000 a month, retainers of doing nothing. You can do it yourself. And these are the ways and the tools and the methods that I learned that I hope I can pass down to you and just show them different ways of doing things and not getting stuck, So if it's COVID, now we're pivoting and we're using that time to build and not break. And so it's been a really eye-opening experience, to come full circle of life.
No, and I love your comeback story, and I love how you're turning that into an inspiration for others to be able to turn their own lives or businesses around. And exactly what you've said about the public relations side, I think a lot of people get trapped into thinking that you need someone in this field maybe to help you get onto the news or in the papers or some of those things. What they don't understand is that those outlets are just as hungry for content as you are hungry to get on them. And once you know the avenues to kind of approach that in, now, a good PR person can get you into some places that you couldn't get yourself. But, I was very fortunate to kind of learn the game a little bit and to get myself onto local TV news and in the papers and on the radio and to do a lot of that stuff all on my own. So understanding that it's possible, I think, is that first step. Now, whether people want to do the work to get there, it's there, but you don't need to go and spend this exorbitant amount of money, in the 5 figures just to get a retainer to, just to have an opportunity to talk to someone about it. Like that's not, I don't think that's necessary. And in this day and age of just like the overwhelm of content that's out there, there's people out there that would love to talk to you and let you tell your story.
Yes. And I think it all boils down, working with HSN and QVC, I've really learned that their model works over time and transcends time because it's all about authenticity and storytelling. It's not about the material. It's not about what you gain. It's genuinely helping people. And if the money comes, great. And if it doesn't, great. You move on. But there's so many stories of, I think, when people always try to keep me small. I was featured in the newspaper. I had a mustache, of course, little girls, in 6th grade. And I was featured in the newspaper. I was so embarrassed. But I think God was giving me moments of, this is your story, but I never believed in it. So I think when I had met this girl that I considered someone very close, I gave everything. I wanted that love. I wanted that freedom. I didn't want an arranged marriage. And I think I poured all my energies into believing in people And, the world wears masks, and now we're finally in a time of when the masks are unveiling and coming off, and you're seeing people for who they are and what they bring. And it's not a money pitch or anything. It's genuinely, here's a product. If it fits you, great. If it doesn't, great. We're moving on, and I do feel, like you said, calling people, no one's going to have the hunger and drive that you did to be on the news channel. It's so impressive. And to highlight people, because I think people underestimate what it takes to have 1,000 no's and the door slammed in your face. But, being Punjabi and Indian, I was always born into a world where I was brown skin. The Indians, the Punjabis are all about fair skin, and now they've evolved. But that was beauty growing up. So I was never that mold. And I'm like, gosh, after trying to fit in the mold, you get so depressed. Why not just break the mold and make it your own? And I think that's what I teach people, how to break out of that matrix and what people think you should be, because half of the fear is all like being rejected from people or what they're going to think. And I think it feels great to be rejected because you're growing and evolving. So I think if we start looking at life in a different lens and see, why are we here? What have we learned? How are we moving forward? Versus, if you've noticed, you still stay stuck in the same lessons, and even with PR, they'll put it on a celebrity, but that celebrity doesn't know your name. She doesn't know anything about you. I was so grateful. I think this is over a decade ago, one of the first celebrities I worked with was Emmanuel Shariki. And she was the kindest, most amazing, down-to-earth girl. And I used to love watching her on Entourage as Sloane. And, she was working with...
What a great character.
She's beautiful inside out. Like, her inner energy just radiates. And we hit it off because we're both Canadian. And she was just so kind. She could have been like, oh, brown girl or whatever. Like, I'm going to be with my team of people, but she just kept gravitating because she understood what I was pulling was not about the brand or what they're paying me to put on her. And, they actually weren't even paying me. I was putting it on because I genuinely love everything I do and touch and turn it into gold. And that's, I think, the message she took from it. And she was just such a beautiful soul and just so radiant. And that's, I think, why she just keeps moving on in life. And you just see her doing great things. I just watched a movie of her. I think it was on Hulu or Netflix, not Netflix, one of the Christmas movies. And she's just so heart touching. And she really is who she is on and off camera. And I think that's really important to get to those bare bones of like who people are. And I love what you're doing of understanding not only the product or anything, but the people behind it, because anyone can present themselves of I do A, B, and C, but who's really behind the scenes? It's like the Wizard of Oz, I'm doing A, B, C, and you pull off the veil and they know nothing about nothing. But I've learned, you should step to the forefront. You should inspire people. And I think that's why photographers with models, like, now the models are becoming on the behind the scenes because they want to understand the full scope and they really want to understand the industry and lens and perception and angles. And I think those are the kind of people even I'm targeting to work with, the visionaries of like, what's next and how can we move forward? Not the ones that are stuck, or we're at this title or that title. COVID taught us we're all the same. The grocery store worker is just as important as a doctor. And that's what my father taught me. He was a cab driver and he built the Subway franchise with family, with obviously Fred DeLuca. And they have thousands of stores and they've just been so inspirational. So what I thought was, they're suppressing me. Now it's like, wow, the freedom of like what they've built and how hard they work, like anything is possible. And I think that's, born and bred in me, but I just was following people's dreams, not my own. And I think consulting has really taught me too, like, they're not on the same page sometimes. You're on page 10 and they can't even see the vision of page 1. So now it's like, great, we could do that on the side, but let's table that and keep moving.
Yeah, some people, it's very hard to get past the cover. And especially with business owners that are, maybe very good operators of their business and have something, they're not necessarily good storytellers. And I think that's kind of why I like my show and I like my position kind of in media right now is I'm a little bit of your public relations bit, right? Like not just hosting you on here, but helping you kind of pull at that story a little bit, to pull at those threads. And that's why I always like to start off with a little bit of someone's backstory and allowing them to just share and having that freedom. And that may be the best part about doing this over the internet and on StreamYard like we are here today, is that people are always somewhere where they're very comfortable. They're not coming into a studio space or somewhere that they've never been before. They are in their private areas, often their office or a bedroom or somewhere in their house. And they are more at ease with the conversation then. And my job is to really just give them the space to share that story and maybe tug at a few things that they don't find interesting about themselves or that story that myself and from my lived experience find fascinating.
Oh, totally. And I totally agree. And I think it's so fascinating you were on the news channels of the music story. I'd love to learn more about that. I think it's so fascinating too. My friend William taught me this. He was with the NFL and he did all the Victoria's Secret shows and the event planning and whatnot. And he was just brilliant, and we had a dinner one time, like a business dinner. And he said, I'm inviting people from all different backgrounds. One's going to be a doctor. One will be a club guy at the door, and one's going to be a jeweler. And he kind of mixed up because, as you've seen, like even on the Real Housewives or reality shows, they put who you belong with in a corner and you're like ganged up and you feel safe and comfort. But he broke all the boundaries and he was placing everyone on different things. So now I'm talking to a lawyer that's doing, water power supply that I have no idea what she's saying. And she has no idea about my world. And it was just so fascinating. That was one of the most amazing conversations I've ever had. Like, I think ever, of a woman just in her power of, what she does and not understanding it, but igniting something within of like wanting to learn more. And maybe the world is bigger than just what the news is showing us. Like, let's learn about people's actual backgrounds and not so AI generated. And I'm victim to that too. You want to reword things, but you have to make it your own where they feel that energy coming through, because then you just all sound like robots. Someone will say it's a great day today and they write a paragraph. The day is great because 100% is sunshine. It's like, let's get back to, and again, this takes me back to HSN QVC. They have it down right. They've evolved with the time and they're really telling stories. And that's, I think, where Amazon differs a little. They brought in all the influencers and the product lines, but that story's not really there. You're just looking at the product. But QVC, HSN, they're sharing the story and the product line and moving it through. And I think it's so important as even a life lesson of when you talk to people, you don't just, okay, I have a little confession to make. So my full name, Indian given name, is Sandeep. And I was so embarrassed by it that I actually, when I became a naturalized citizen, I changed it to Sandy, my nickname. And it kind of makes me rethink now, I am very deep and I should have kept my name. So how do I get my name back? And I think that's what America teaches us, like the immigrants, like it's all about the immigrants. You're building America, but guess what? Now you're all being kicked out and under these circumstances. So you have to see illusion and messaging and reality. And my now basis of my messaging has become reality. No fluff, let's have an honest conversation. Even buyers, sometimes they'll ghost you, obviously, or 100 calls will lead to one golden call. But I've been so blessed at this time after going through that ringer that they actually pick up the phone and they'll just have an honest conversation. This product is not doing it for us. Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. That's it. Rather than not answering your call and then the person's expending energy and now you're blocking them and they're expending energy. Now you both are in a cluster mind fuck and you're just like, I'm going here, you're going, like, it's just why? It's just, I think people are learning about energy and containment and it's so important, and don't waste it and just put it into things that matter. So I love what you're doing too, with your podcast. And even with me and my personal story, it's crazy. No one would ever believe it. It's like the movies. Even I don't believe it. I was filled with illusion. And, I don't lead with that. I lead with what did I learn? Where are we now? Where are we going? And I think it's just so important what you're doing and how many people you're helping on a day-to-day basis from all backgrounds, coming from music. And again, I'm a jewel, like how, the worlds mix and how you all come together.
Yeah, and it really just comes from a passion for getting to know people, wanting to have intriguing, inspiring conversations, and that's why I kind of lead with that. With my pitch a lot on LinkedIn now, because I'm looking to expand our horizons and to connect with people outside of the music world, because I found ways to connect with more musicians. I don't have to do as much one-to-one now, being a part of several different award shows. Having those pools, well, there's already people here. So I can get I can be more efficient with the energy that I do have, which frees me up to do other things. It doesn't free me up to relax. I don't even know the meaning of the word anymore, if I'm being perfectly honest, but it frees me up to go and to have more conversations, to meet inspiring individuals such as yourself, Sandy, and everything that you've been through to be now, kind of back on top of the world. It would have been very easy for you to just float through life and to be the Indian princess that you could have been, right? It would have been very easy for you to choose that path. And instead you chose to go get a double master's. And I don't think a lot of people would assume you're so well educated, being this beautiful woman that I see before me, that, you have more degrees on your wall than 95% of the population. My wife is a very well-educated woman herself. She had already had a degree and then got into teaching and took not just one major, but two, and picked up a minor along the way. And not that, the certificates on the wall are an end all be all, but the work that she's doing being a special educator has brought out this side of my wife that I didn't know was even in there. Right. And I think to some degree she didn't either. And much the same way that you didn't know this person that sits before me now was inside of, a very impressionable 20-something.
Oh, exactly. And, I think, well, now that we're talking about it, well, first off, I think your wife is amazing for teaching, and it's such a selfless act to be in that realm, and I think it's so important to have people like that and women like that with the hearts, because I think America shows you how to kind of close off and don't show emotion, and you're in a business meeting and don't do this, don't do that. But I learned from my family growing up that you always treat everyone the same. A janitor or a president, you would never know. And you're right. I could have easily, who couldn't have, like at 18 or 20, married the doctor, the lawyer, had the mansion, the cars. But I always knew there's something greater for me. And I think when I had met this person in college who portrayed to be a good friend, and, they knew the freedom and the love I wanted. And that takes you full circle, because I call myself dumb sometimes because I was so blinded by, but, different things come into play, because I think when the whole story, for instance, there was a psychic that was a clairvoyant that I actually believed that if you don't leave home tonight, you're going to die. So I left home, and these kind of components and factors that I found out only later that it was her the whole time, creating fake accounts on social media, finding out things and friends and cutting you off and isolating. And I think, going through that, it was just always giving your power away. And then every time I moved city to city, now I'm living with these people that are strangers virtually, getting a room. And most of the women, if not all, were being paid to date and asked me, hey, you have a rich look. I'm like, a rich look? You don't know what I've been through. Why don't you date ABC? And I said, never. I will never. That's my integrity. And I think the full circle of life was that if I didn't go through all those people, I wasn't learning the lesson. That's why I kept repeating. The lesson was, if you don't leave and have your own power, it's kind of like, even if it was a girl, it's kind of like a pimp, kind of giving your power away and being vulnerable. So I think I'm teaching women, and I'm actually glad I went through everything in life, because I've been helping shape so many lives in like the back end that I don't even talk about, kind of like the, just what I do on a day-to-day basis of helping these girls and being the bad guy or the fall guy. I don't care. They always want to ruin your character because you're speaking the truth. And I've learned now to step on the forefront. That doesn't matter to me. I don't care. You can say I'm ABC as long as I'm helping you not be in the situation you're in. And if I could get out of something, you can get out of it. And I had no car for 25 years. I was driving a friend's car that had control over me. So you physically can't leave. It's like a bad housewife, of having the control of that. So I think I left home wanting freedom, little to know I'm back into a cage. And now it's that real freedom of doing everything on your own, making your own decisions, and living in America with freedom. I think we take it for granted of these small little rights we have, and against the world now, even with Iran, I think we're learning, just how to kind of not build against politics alone, but go beyond that, and go beyond just a regime and like think more Western. And, you don't want to be stuck in time. You want to evolve, and I think that's really important. And again, I lost my chance to have kids, and people will say, no, you didn't, but I'm going to be 47 years old, and it's tough because I was in that situation that I gave up those kind of things that you don't realize until later in life, like God, like unless it's adoption or fostering. But then God gave me that story now because obviously I can use that to further maybe another child's life and save them. And I actually just saw this, this father was smoking in this baby's face. She's a toddler. And my heart went out to her, and I'm like, I sometimes can't help myself. I told myself, don't get in any more situations. It's not your business unless they ask you, but I just cannot help myself. I was compelled to. He's a young father smoking in the toddler's face, and he has her right in front of a smoke shop that they're going in and out of his friend's smoke shop. And I don't want to call the police because I don't want to get them involved with CPS, and I don't want to be a tattletale and lose her connection with the father. But I had to go confront him. And these are like gangster looking guys, there's like a group of them. And I knew maybe they could pull a gun on me or do ABC, but I think God gave me that voice because you have to step up and share your voice. And I think not get hardened by your situation, everything. I think if we start changing our perspective of why things happen the way they do, we can really evolve to new heights and help each other, because that's all we have. At the end of the day, we're all equal, and we're all here just to help each other. We're not here to one up each other. There's enough stars in the sky. I make it my daily mission. I'll just call someone and say, how can I help you today? And even a vision they can't see, I'll give them. And they're like, huh? Like, how, and let's get this rolling for you. Use my contacts, use my network. Like, I grew up in Montreal. We were going to the neighbors' houses, not even knowing who they were, knocking, saying, hey, we don't have a pool. Can we come to yours? And like, where is that? Let's build community, not AI communities, of like robotic, and everyone's becoming about one-minded, like, busyness. It's like, let's break away. Who were we before the internet? Let's go back to wholesomeness and kindness and just love. And I think that's a long lesson I've learned, but very grateful I did.
No, and kind of alluding to the story that you shared. I mean, this young man in that situation probably didn't have a lot of positive role models in his life. Didn't have anyone to tell him, hey, don't smoke in front of the baby. Right? Like, maybe this isn't great for your young child, and it's not fair to put her in that position. And, it's something that I grew up. I was born in the 80s, so they all smoked cigarettes around us and in the car with us, and, a different world. But now we know better. So when you know better, do better. And I think that that's a great lesson that people can take away, and that people can glean from two individuals like us that have lived harder lives than some, still very blessed lives, I would add, for each of us, but that we're very open about sharing our hardships, and to let the lessons be gleaned from that, and don't do as I have done, right? Not don't do as I do, right? I'm trying to do better, and I'm trying to get better every day, the same as you are. And if I can share some piece of that with you, whether it be on the business side or a personal life or your health, then it's my duty to do that as a fellow human being that wants to see our entire human race evolve, not just a small regional, a local community, a regional community, a nation, as a human race. I want to see us all get better.
Yes. And it's funny because you'll usually hear like people making their way up in life, but not going backwards in life. Like God gave you everything. And then you're like, no, thanks. I'll go like Buddha, and I'm not saying I'm Buddha by any means. Don't get it wrong. But I'm just saying that mindset of like, I'm going to go climb up the walls and go see what's out in the real world. And you see sickness and prostitution and drugs and deals and everything. And you're just like, wow. And I think it just comes full circle of the blessings that you do have, but then the materialism is ripped away because you just see how the real world lives, and going back to this little girl I saw, I'm just like, God, you could have had such a promising life, the hand you're dealt with. And, when I talk to the father, he's probably like 20 something. He has no idea, what he's doing. He thinks like the mom is ABC and I'm taking care of her and I'm watching her, but they're not thinking the next, like secondhand smoke or a toddler. And, and I think a normal person would have probably just called the cops, but to have compassion to go talk to them. Now, if you see it again after you talk to them, then that's a situation you have to handle, but I think too many people are afraid to speak up, and you have to just be confident. They strip you away of all your freedom, everything, and I think that's something I've really learned is to step into your power and be unapologetically yourself. And usually people will know the masses, or they're going to know that one person that knows the masses. I've always been that popular loner, I had all the people around, but I just wanted to go in my little shell. And I think, living that kind of a life, it's like you connect with everyone, but who's really going to be there for you in times of hardships and need? And you really have your circle be so small and intimate that, the energy is just always percolating and things are happening and great things are happening because you're not letting that like any other energy poke in. And I think we're just in this energy defining era of leading with your frequency, not your degrees or what you've done. Like, who are you now? What have you learned? What do you bring to the table? And how are we going to make this work? And I think, I want more realness from this world. Life is so short. It's like, let's go back to the bare basics. Like, how come our grandmothers were wearing these long nighties, having like 6 kids? And now everyone's like, I want to be in the bad B era. And, but all these women like Beyonce singing single ladies and hyping you up as married with kids. Like, let's start reality and messaging. Let's in alignment, let's get in alignment with who we are, what we're saying, what we're preaching. And I think that's what's going to attract the right people and tribe to us.
No doubt. Well, Sandy, what a lovely conversation. Thank you for spending some time with me today. I absolutely appreciate it. Go ahead and share one more time the website and everything else where people can find you and have a chance to work with you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. sandygrayconsulting.com.
Fantastic. Well, Sandy, I just appreciate you. It's been lovely getting to know you over our past few conversations. I hope that we have a chance to meet in person someday if I ever make it out west again. It's been a while, but absolutely lovely to share another conversation with you. And thank you for being part of the scene.
Thank you so much. And thank your wife, please, for doing the amazing work she's doing with special ed. It takes a lot of patience. And I think in this microwavable popcorn society, you have no patience. And I'm guilty of it too. You just want things right here, right now. I think it takes a really special soul to, and I hope we see her on the podcast soon.
Me too, Sandy. Have a great day and we'll chat soon.
You too. Take care. Bye.